Socialism destroyed Venezuela. Corruption killed the country. At least that is what the headlines and the politicians would have you believe. But is that really the whole truth? The collapse of Venezuela is undeniable. We are talking about a country that sits on 300 billion barrels of proven oil reserve. That is more than Saudi Arabia, more than United States. By all logic, this should be the Dubai of South America, but instead, it is a crime scene. Today, we answer the ultimate economic riddle. How did a nation floating on oil manage to run out of gas? We'll track the Dutch disease, the hidden economic cancer that started rotting the country long before Chavez ever took power. We will expose the ghost import scam, a financial loophole that let the elite loot $300 billion while the poor starved. We will analyze the Runescape Economy, the bizarre reality where killing virtual dragons became more profitable than being a doctor. And finally, the technological suicide, the single moment on live TV that turned off the lights for an entire nation. If you want to understand how a country commits suicide, you can't just look at the body. You have to look at the blood work. And to do that, we need to go back 100 years. To understand the collapse, we have to rewind to December 14, 1922. A drilling crew in the Maracaibo Basin hits a pocket of gas. Suddenly, a jet of oil shoots 200 feet into the air. It rained black sludge for 9 days straight. It was so loud that locals thought it was the end of the world. Actually, it was the beginning of the end. This brings us to a concept economists call the Dutch disease. It sounds complicated, but think of it like the lottery winner's curse. Imagine you win 100 million tomorrow. You quit your job, you stop mowing your own lawn, you stop cooking, you just buy everything from the other people because you are rich. But here's the trap, you didn't earn that money, you just found it. But you are so into it and already forget your reality. You forget how to work, you lose your skills, and if the money ever runs out, you realize you are helpless. That is exactly what happened to Venezuela. Before the oil explosion, they were a hard-working agricultural state. They grew coffee, they grew cacao, they made things. But once the oil started flowing, the Venezuelan currency became incredibly strong. Suddenly, it was cheaper to import coffee from Brazil than to grow it at home. So the farmers stopped farming, the factories stopped building. Why make shoes when you can just buy them from Italy with your petrodollars? For a while, this looked like a miracle. In the 50s, Venezuela's GDP per capita was higher than Spain, Japan, and even the United Kingdom. They were 12 times richer than China. By the 70s, the wealth was so absurd that the supersonic Concorde jet flew a regular route from Paris to Caracas. Wealthy Venezuelans were known as the Dame Dos generation. When they shopped in Miami, their catchphrase was "Tabarato dame dos," meaning it's cheap, give me two. But here's the devil in the details. They were not building an economy, they were spending an inheritance. By 1935, oil was already 90% of their exports. They had hollowed out their own ability to produce anything. They were completely addicted to the price of a single commodity. On February 18, 1983, the party officially ended on a day known as Black Friday. Oil price dropped and the currency collapsed. Instantaneously, the lottery winner was now broke, and he realized he had forgotten how to farm. Poverty spiked, the middle class panicked, and it was in this chaos, this feeling that the system was broken, and thus the moment the door was opened for a charismatic outsider who promised to give the power back to the people. The stage was set ready for Hugo Chavez. But as we are about to see, the problem wasn't that he tried to fix the inequality. The problem was that he decided to fight the laws of mathematics. So, the economy was already addicted to oil. But addiction isn't fatal if you still keep the medicine flowing. The fatal blow didn't come from CIA or a foreign invasion. It came from a whistle. In April 2002, President Hugo Chavez appeared on a national television. He called out the name of the top executive at PDVSA, the state oil company. One by one, he blew the whistle and shouted, "Fuera," which means get out. In a single purge, he fired 18,000 employees. These were not just politicians, they were geologists, engineers, and managers. This was technological suicide. See, Venezuelan oil isn't like Saudi oil. Saudi oil is light sweet crude. It comes out of the ground like water. You just poke a hole and you get rich. But Venezuelan oil is extra heavy crude. It is thick like tar or molasses. To get it out of the ground and refine it, you need advanced technology and brilliant engineers. When Chavez fired the experts and replaced them with political loyalists, he didn't just fire the people, he fired the memory of how to drill. Production collapsed, not because the oil ran out, but because they forgot how to get it. But destroying the oil industry wasn't enough. They decided to break the laws of commerce too. Enter the Fair Prices Act. The government decided that inflation was caused by greedy businessmen, so they simply made it illegal to raise prices. Let's look at this through the baker's dilemma. Imagine you are a baker. The government decrees that a loaf of bread must be sold for $1 to help the poor. But because of inflation, the imported flour costs you $2. The electricity to run the oven costs 50 cents. Every time you bake a loaf, you lose $1.50. So what do? You don't become a charity. You stop baking. This is the complex macroeconomic concept called price ceiling causing shortages. The intention was to make food affordable. The result was that food vanished. McDonald's in Venezuela had to stop selling Big Mac, not because people couldn't afford them, but because they couldn't buy the middleman. By trying to control the price, they destroyed the supply. So now, you have a country that cannot produce oil and cannot produce food. If you cannot make anything, you have to import everything. And that desperation created the perfect loophole for the greatest financial heist in history. So, the farms are dead, the oil wells are breaking, and the baker has stopped baking. This means Venezuela had to import food, medicine, toilet paper, and almost everything. This brings us to the ghost import scam. To understand the crime, you have to understand the gap. The government wanted to keep imports cheap, so they created a system called Commission for the Administration of Currency Exchange. They set a fixed exchange rate. They said, if you are importing medicine or food, we will sell you US dollar for incredibly cheap. Let's say the official rate was 10 bolivar for $1. But on the black market, which is the real world scenario, everyone knew $1 at that time was worth 1,000 bolivars. Here is the infinite money glitch breakdown. Now, a lot of people get stuck on the math here. If the bolivar is worthless, why would a scammer want millions of them? The answer is to reload the weapon. I will simplify it the easiest way. Think of it like a casino. First, you take 10,000 bolivars. On the street, this buys you a cup of coffee. But you are a bodyguard. You have a VIP pass to the government exchange window. The government has a fake fantasy price. They say, because you are a friend, we'll sell you US dollars for cheap. They take your worthless 10,000 bolivars and give you 1,000 US dollars. Now, you walk out the back door to the black market. Here, people are desperate for dollars. They will pay anything. You sell that $1,000 at the real price. Suddenly, you don't have 10,000 bolivars anymore. You have 1 million bolivars on hand. This is the most important part. You don't keep the bolivars. You run back to the government window with your new massive pile of cash. You say, I would like to buy more dollar, please. Now, instead of getting 1,000, you get $100,000. Then you do it again and again. It is a centrifuge. Each time you spin the money around, you multiply your worth by 100. You start out with the price of a coffee, and after 3 spins, you have enough money to buy a condo in Miami. You are not trading. You are looting the national treasury one spin at a time. You didn't produce anything. You didn't help anyone. You just exploited the gap between the fantasy price and the real price. It was more profitable to pretend to trade than to actually do the work. This isn't a theory, it is a matter of record. Investigators found thousands of shipping containers in Venezuelan ports filled with nothing but dead and scrap parts just to pass the weight inspection. They were ghost imports. While hospitals ran out of insulin and antibiotics, the elite were stealing the dollars meant to buy them. How much was stolen? Estimates suggest over $300 billion vanished through this currency scam. To put that in perspective, that is twice the cost of the Marshall Plan. For those who don't know what the Marshall Plan is, it was the massive US project that rebuilt the entire continent of Europe after World War II. It paid for the roads, the factories, and the bridges of France, Germany, the UK, and Italy combined. Venezuela lost enough money to rebuild Europe twice. This wealth didn't disappear, it just moved. It moved from the Venezuelan people to offshore bank accounts in Switzerland and condos in Miami. So the government has no money left. The oil revenue is gone, the scam has drained the treasury, but the bills still need to be paid. So what does a government do when it has $0 but unlimited power? They turn on the printer, and that is when the fever starts. This is the moment the autopsy turns into a horror movie. When the oil money stopped coming in, the government didn't cut spending. They just printed more zeros. They started printing money to buy dollars to pay off their debts, which devalued the money, so they printed more money. This created a death spiral. But we are not economists, so here is the simple version. Imagine the entire economy is a single pizza. The money in your pocket is the slice. When the government prints more money, they are not baking a bigger pizza. They are just cutting the existing pizza into thousands of tiny microscopic slices. Suddenly, your slice, which is equivalent to your salary, is just a cramp. And the shopkeeper, who is referred as the creditor, demands more slices for a loaf of bread. So, the government prints more slices to pay him. The more they print, the less it's worth. And once that cycle starts, you cannot stop it. By 2018, inflation hit 1 million%. Let me explain what that actually looks like. It means that a cup of coffee costs twice as much in the afternoon as it did in the morning. It means you stop counting money and you start weighing it. There are videos of people buying a single roll of toilet paper with a stack of bills that is physically larger than the toilet paper itself. The money became so worthless that artists started painting on the bills because the canvas was more expensive than the cash. So how did the government hide this failure? They performed a magic trick called redenomination. They simply deleted the zeros. In 2008, they removed 3 zeros. In 2018, they removed 5 more. In 2021, they removed 6 more. In total, they have deleted 14 zeros in 13 years. Mathematically speaking, that is like taking $100 trillion, then remove the zeros and turning it into $1. But you cannot eat zeros. The result was a humanitarian catastrophe known as the Maduro diet. This wasn't a health trend. It was dark national gallows humor. When the president joked on TV that Venezuelans were getting thinner because of the crisis, the people turned it into a grim slogan. It referred to the forced starvation of a nation. In a single year, the average Venezuelan living in extreme poverty lost 19 pounds of body weight simply because there was no food. The richest country in South America was starving to death. And in this desperation, the people did something incredible. They realized the Bolivar was dead, so they started looking for a new currency. They didn't choose Bitcoin, they didn't choose gold, they chose dragons. This is the part of the story that sounds fake, but I promise you, it is 100% real. When the real economy collapsed, young Venezuelans migrated to a digital one. They started playing a 2007 era video game called Old School Runescape. In the game, you can kill green dragons to collect digital gold coins. Normally, this is just for fun, but in Venezuela, digital gold became more stable than the real gold. These players known as gold farmer will play for 10 to 12 hours a day hunting dragons. Then, they will go back to black market websites and sell that digital gold to American players for real US dollars. The math was shocking. A doctor in Caracas hospital was making about $10 a month due to hyperinflation. A kid killing virtual dragons was making $60 to $100 a month. Video games were not hobby, they were a lifeline. Entire families were fed because their son was good at clicking a mouse. But this digital lifeboat had a leak, the power grid. Because the government stopped maintaining the infrastructure, massive blackouts swept the country. When the lights went out, the gold farmers were kicked offline. No internet meant no dragons. No dragon meant no dollars. No dollar meant no food. It proved that even in the metaverse, you cannot escape the incompetence of the real world. So, the internet system had failed, the power was out, the people were starving, the country was on its knee, and that is exactly when the United States decided to kick it. Now, we have to address the Venezuela government's favorite scapegoat, the sanctions. The regime claims the imperialist blockade is the only reason the economy collapsed, but we investigate deeper. It brought us to the timeline. The food shortages started in 2014. The hunger peaked in 2016. The massive US oil embargo didn't hit until 2019. They were already in a coma. The sanctions just unplugged the ventilator. But how did the sanction actually work? It wasn't just a ban on money, it was a ban on chemistry. This is the viscosity trap. Venezuelan oil is extra heavy. It is basically asphalt. It literally cannot flow through the pipeline unless you mix it with a chemical thinner called diluent. For decades, the only country selling them that thinner was the United States. When the sanctions hit, the US stopped sending them chemical. Overnight, the oil didn't just stop selling, it physically solidified in the pipes. The entire machine seized up. Desperate for survival, the government turned to the dark fleet. They started using ghost ships, tankers that turn off their GPS trackers and paint over their names to smuggle oil to China and Iran at a massive discount. But here's the catch. Smugglers don't pay with bank transfers, they pay with cash. Suitcases full of US dollars started flying into Caracas. And this flood of black market cash forced the government to do the one thing they swore they would never do, which is the surrender. If you walk into a store in Caracas today, you will see something that breaks your brain. You will see shelves stacked with Kirkland's signature toilet paper and great value cereal. You will see Ferraris driving past starving pensioners. How is this possible in a country under total blockade? Welcome to the zombie economy. The government realized it couldn't feed the people anymore, so they effectively outsourced the economy to Miami. Here is the mechanism nobody talks about. When the oil industry died, Venezuela switched its main export. They stopped exporting crude and they started exporting people. 7.9 million Venezuelans have fled the country. That is exactly 25% of their population. But they didn't forget their families. They work in construction in Miami or delivery in Madrid, and they send cash back home. This is the remittance engine. These refugees send back an estimated $3 to $4 billion a year. That is more money than the country makes from agriculture. To capture those dollars, the government quietly passed the new rule, the door-to-door loophole. They waived import taxes for personal shipments. Suddenly, entrepreneurs started flying in everything tax-free from flat-screen TVs to Nutella. They created these luxury shops called bodegones. The government, which spent 20 years fighting Yankee imperialism, basically admitted, we can't feed you, but if your cousin in Miami sends you $1, we will let you buy American cereal. This created a K-shaped reality. The economy isn't split by rich versus poor anymore. It is split by dollar access. The top 20% of Venezuelans who receive money from abroad or work in tech or black market bubble, they live in a dollarized paradise. The bottom line, the teachers, nurses, and pensioners who have no one abroad, they are paid in worthless bolivars. A university professor makes $20 a month. A box of cereal in Bodegon costs $8. In the math, a professor has to work for 2 weeks just to buy a box of Fruit Loops. This is the zombie state. The body is dead, but the dollar from the diaspora are acting like electricity, shocking the corpse just enough to keep it walking. So, who killed Venezuela? Was it the oil? Was it Chavez? Was it the sanctions? The truth, as always, is nuanced. The oil was the drug that made them lazy. Chavez was the dealer who fired the only people who knew how to manage the addiction. And the sanctions were just the withdrawal symptoms that came after the already broken body. But the real killer was the Dutch disease. Venezuela forgot the most basic rule of human civilization. You cannot consume what you do not produce. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank or in the ground. If you destroy your farms, your factories, and your engineers, you are just a lottery winner waiting to go broke. This isn't just a story about Venezuela. It is a warning for every country. When a nation stops making things and starts relying on financial tricks, money printing, or a single commodity, the doomsday clock starts ticking. Venezuela had the wealth of a god, but the mindset of a gambler. And remember, the house always wins. Don't take your economy for granted. Build something real. Thanks for watching, stay productive, and unless you own the money printer, stay insightful.